Are people learning meta skills in everyday life?
Absolutely. They're learning them in everyday life. Every time you want to figure out how to get to work, I'm going to use this route, or I'm going to take a bus or a train, you're analyzing, you're planning, you're already applying your meta skills. Every time you travel and you're alone in a new country, you have to figure things out. So yes, you're developing your meta skills.
So, like,
Child, yeah.
can you give me an example? Like, if I'm going to work and I'm
For
trying to
example,
analyze, what's the meta skill there?
you go to work every day, you take a bus, right, to go
Yeah.
to work. And then tomorrow there's a strike or construction works, and then the bus is not going anywhere. So you need
Right.
to figure out how to get to work.
Hmm.
And you have to that's
So
the medicine.
what's the let's break that
Planning.
down. So what is
Planning.
the yeah?
Planning is a medicine.
What is the what's going on? Okay,
So you have to
got it.
plan. So when people learn metacognitive strategies, well, there are three of them. You have to plan how you're going to approach the exercise. And most people have no idea. I'm just going to jump in and then I'm going to get all frustrated and disappointed. Oh, I can't do it. I'm lazy. But they never plan. How are you going to do this exercise? Which includes, where are you going to sit? In which room? How much time do you need to factor in? Do you need a glass of water? Like, you have to prepare your environment. You have to plan accordingly. And most people have no idea how they function, what they need to learn, how much time
Mhm.
they need, but they assume that they can do it quickly or as quickly as
Maybe
someone
it's
else.
like being able to see, maybe being able to see like the different case scenarios and saying like, oh, if I take this route, this is going to happen.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
if I leave a little bit early, then this. But if I leave too early, then I'm going to be waiting when I get there. Like
yeah, yeah,
having that cognitive like
yeah.
thing.
So you
Because
have to.
here's a good example, right?
Mhm.
So one thing I talk about is okay. So I always say storytelling is critical thinking. Like what I'm really underneath teaching critical thinking. So I might put out a story like this. Uh, all the way on the surface level, what people are saying is, "Hey, um, here's a good quote: Don't try to be interesting, try to be interested." Right? Or like, or another way people will say it is like, "Be present in the meeting," or don't, rather than trying to like impress people, don't try to be impressive, or just be present and listen. Or some people might say it as like in sales meetings, don't try to like don't talk, but listen is more important than talking, or like all these different things people say on the top, but underneath that layer, I don't think most people really understand what that means and why they should be doing it, right? So
Especially
once
if
you
they've never been in a sales meeting, they will never be able to understand that.
yeah, but even if they've been in a sales meeting, because I know a lot of people like me myself.
Yeah.
So here's like a critical thinking part. I used to go to sales meetings all the time, and I would do some research on the company before, and I would go in and I'd say, okay, I'm gonna mention that, this company got acquired by this other company 2 years ago, so I'm gonna mention that to impress them, to show them I've been doing research, and I'm gonna show them all these awards that I won, and I'm trying to constantly impress them with the amount of knowledge that I have, right? Thinking that that's what I need in order to sell. Now, when I was hiring a copywriter from one of my clients, when we started interviewing people, what happened was these copywriters were coming to us, and they were doing the same thing to me. The copywriters like, oh, you have to write the copy this way because this is the X blah blah blah, and they were trying to impress me with all of. But in the midst of them trying to impress me, I was in my head, I was thinking like, oh, but that's not going to work for my audience because
Yes.
for Baptist yoga, these audience actually hates that language. They hate the way that those marketers, the copywriters, you know, the copywriter language and all of that. And I was trying to explain that, like, okay, like our audience is like this, blah 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 blah. But it was like they weren't listening because they were so focused on
Yeah.
impressing me by talking about themselves that they made me feel like I'm not important. They made me feel like they're not really listening to me. And that's when I realized that, oh my gosh, I was actually doing the same thing as what that guy was doing when I go into the sales meeting, right? And okay, so now that when I explain that, for some reason, when I explain it like that, everybody's like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. That's so true. Like, because everyone's been in that conversation where everyone was just focused on talking and not listening, right? But then they don't understand that they're also doing that in a sales
Yes.
meeting. So, but then I can't teach. Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you want to tell stories, if you want to be good at storytelling, you need, I just told you a story.
Yes.
And the point of that story is to make you see something that you didn't see before. But in order to be able to even tell that story, you have to experience it first and understand that that's what's happening, which is what most people don't understand. So unless you've already been here, you can't tell a story about it, and therefore you can't grow Instagram. Do
That's
you
why,
understand?
yeah, that's why Metaskills can be only taught if you practice something, not if you talk about something, not if you learn something from a book or from a webinar, but if you really do something, practice it. Attending workshops is not practice. Like really posting things, writing things, contacting people, go into those sales meetings with a coach or with a
Can I
mentor. Yeah.
can I say something? I think somebody could be in that exact same scenario that I was in and still not connect those dots. Like
Yes.
somebody could have been in a interview. Somebody could have been in a situation where they're selling themselves, and then in a situation where they're being sold to, and still not connect those dots to be like, oh, wait a minute, am I doing the same thing that this salesperson is doing to me when I'm selling?
You can't influence that. Everybody is at a different level. As I said, somebody has these skills at 5%, somebody has them at 35%. You can't influence that. So everybody needs a different amount of time to get there, to connect the dots. I have been in these situations many times, the ones that you're
So
describing. And
you
my
think repetition, like if you've been
no,
in that
I've been in
situation
sales
many
meetings like
times,
this. When I started my career, I also tried to impress people a lot. But what I learned and what I'm teaching right now is I had to teach myself to be prepared to be not prepared, like to be prepared for any meeting when I'm not prepared. So I stopped preparing and memorizing the things that I should say, because the most important skill is to feel the situation, to connect with the person. Because it happened to me so many times when I was all prepared, I would come in and a person would tell me, you know what, I have another meeting in 15 minutes. Can we make it like, just quickly? Let's just, what do you have? And then all my presentation, I couldn't deliver it because I had to, I only had 10 minutes. And I had to learn to be spontaneous. And I learned that I have to prepare myself, not my presentation, not my words. I have to prepare myself so I can manage myself in every situation. And so I can quickly connect with the person and feel what is the right thing to say in this specific situation. And you need a lot of practice to be able to come up with this, and a lot of mistakes. You need to do a
or
lot of
what
mistakes.
about like being able to see, that's, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, why is it that some people might be in this situation and see that, oh, wait a minute, like the fact that this person is selling to me right now, I'm sensing that they're not really paying attention to me. And then be able to connect that back and be like, wait a minute, when I was selling to somebody else, I was doing the same thing that this person is doing to me right now, right? So first of all, how can we get somebody to recognize that? Number one.
Give them a lot of practice and show them.
So they have to be in a lot of sales
You
meetings.
have to go to
And
these meetings with them. If they find it difficult to see, you just need to go to these meetings with them. I do all the exercises with my students. I show them exactly how I do it. So because they tell me this all the time. If you didn't show me, I would have never paid attention to this. It's just I never pay attention to these things. So I do everything with them and I show them what is worth
but what
paying
I'm
attention
saying is, okay, this is just one thing, right? This is
to. Yeah.
just one thing. I guess on a high, like now let's take a step back. What I'm saying is, this critical thinking like this is what made me come up with this story, which
Yeah.
is what made me able to put that out in the content in a way that makes sense to other people, right?
Yes.
Now you can do this. That's just one of 1,000 different content that I can put out. Okay, so I can't obviously just sit there and teach people every single. I guess what I'm trying to say is, how can I teach people to do that themselves all the time across all of their activities that's happening in their life? Because here's what I'm trying to say. I think that everyone's already lived a life where they just go back and they just critically think about all the things that all the situations they've been in, and reflect back on all these things. They have the capability to connect the dots and turn it into a story in a way that other people can also see it. But what's happening is they're not going back and actually doing that.
Do
So
you recognize that I came to this podcast with the same question? I have the same question that you're asking me right now.
yeah,
How do you get people to see that? How do you get people to recognize that? Well, first
yeah,
of
I
all,
guess
everybody has
maybe we
exercise.
need to figure out. That's the exact thing that I'm trying to figure out with Night Owl Nation.
Everybody has a different capacity to learn. I don't believe you can teach people. Like, you can identify the most capable learners and help
Mm,
them learn. You can't force somebody to learn it, so you can't teach them if they don't want to learn. But you can definitely identify the most capable learners and help them practice. A lot of people don't understand how to do it. So they want it, but they don't know how to do it. So you're showing this to them. They see a beautiful perspective. Oh, I can do this too. I can grow my Instagram. But they don't understand how to do it. You tell them, write a story, find your 5-second moment, but they still don't hear the message that you need to do it 200 times.
yeah.
Not once.
One thing that I am learning right now though is it takes just one time where they did the exercise and it's something clicked. They're like, oh, I get it now.
Yes,
Like
and
something clicked.
it's
Yeah. Then from that point on, they're like, I see what the point of this exercise is
still not
now.
enough.
Yeah,
When they
and at least they'll keep doing the exercise because they know that the exercise is helping them.
If they do the
But
exercise, that's good.
yeah, but most
But
people don't
yeah,
even have that moment of click. So they're going like, okay, what's the point of doing this exercise? Do you understand what I mean?
there are different scenarios here. You see, when something clicks, so I also work with insights. I have a methodology, and insights is a very important part of the learning process. You need to have this insight. Oh, now I get it, this aha moment. But what happens is that, let's say, one type of people, one category of people, they get this insight and they identify it with success. Oh, now I get it. But
Mhm.
they have no idea how to replicate this success and they quit. Oh, and they tell everyone the
That's
story that I
true.
had this insight. It was great. I had such a great experience, but they don't know how to replicate the success. It was intuitive rather, or it just clicked. And then the other category of people, they understand the potential, so they will practice again so that they're able to replicate the success. So you have learned a skill when you can do it 100 times out of 100 attempts. Then you really learned a skill because you can do it. And the
Mm-mm.
other people, the other category, it just never clicks with them. They can't see it. And they don't understand what you're even talking about.
Yeah, that's why I guess I guess you know what? To answer your question, I'm
Mm.
still in the process of learning that. So I don't know if I can answer your question.
So
Um,
we're building a startup where the learning should be built around practice. And
mhm.
instead of giving people a curriculum, because the problem with most edtech startups is content. As soon as they run out of content, it becomes boring and people are not interested anymore. But instead of consuming content, people need to be doing exercises and receiving feedback. So the thing about learning is you learn from people and you must learn with feedback. So you're doing it great in the community. But practice is hard, feedback is painful. So
Mhm.
it's really hard to sell these ideas.
Mhm.
You know
I
that.
think maybe the answer is like giving quick wins, right? So somehow I need to whittle down the exercise to a point where they do this little tiny little exercise,
Mhm.
and they'll in a very small way something clicks where they go, oh yeah, that that they get some sort of a sense of accomplishment from that exercise. And once they got that sense of exercise, then they're going to be more likely to that second exercise. Right now, what I noticed, the mistake that I've been making is that first exercise is a little bit, a little tough.
Mhm.
It doesn't, after doing that exercise, you don't really have like the sense of accomplishment, like, oh, I figured it out or something like that. so that they don't want to do the second exercise. Do you understand a bit?
But I don't think it's totally true, because for some people it's difficult, and those people who find it difficult, they will say it to you. For others, it's not that difficult, but they will not say it because they
I
did
think
it.
most people are on the second. Like, I think most people are on that second, the latter. I think smaller percentage of people actually get it and it clicks and they're like, okay, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
So yeah,
but
that's
the voices that you hear usually are those people who don't get it, like, and they complain and they can't figure it out. And those people who did it and they understood the value of the exercise, they're going to do it again.